City garrisons, and what are the best city garrisons? That is the question I get asked so much in my Discord, in my chats, and everything. Everybody always asks, what's the best city garrison? What do I use? Well, it's all situational. That's always the answer for it, because it depends on whether you're taking a rally, on whether you're taking a swarm, whether you're baiting people to hit you while you're off tag. We're going to go through it all, and we're going to tell you about all the commanders to use, also the budget commanders to use, because if you do get stuck having to take a rally, we're going to help you set up for that. So stick around while we go through it all right here.
Rallies lit up, marching right from the zone to the zone. I stay in control. Man of the people, all heart, no roll, no script, no throne, just rhythm and fire. Built for the push, never gonna tire. You feel that burn, and you already know we're locked in deep. This is Chatsky mode. This is Chatsky mode.
Hey everybody, I'm your boy War Daddy Chatsky, and I do these videos all the time. Love doing guides, love to show the community all the different nuances with the game. And if you enjoy these kind of videos, please throw a thumbs up on them. Give them a like. If you haven't subscribed, consider doing so. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you want to get the alerts when I put out this kind of content, you can hit that bell. And we are growing the channel, so be sure to join my Discord, because we're growing that community as well. The Discord link is down in the description. We want to talk about city garrisons, and as you can see here, my friendly alliance is telling me to do my forts, so that is one thing I always have a reminder of when I was streaming last night. And we're going to talk about city garrisons here, because there's all kinds of different ways to run them, okay? So we're going to go through the commanders. We're going to go through the armaments. You can skip ahead to any section of this that you guys want to see. Well, first of all, we got to talk about the leadership garrisons first and foremost. Hera's been in the game for a few years now, okay? And he is still regarded as a very, very tanky commander in a garrison, especially in your city garrison, and he kicks back damage, okay? So we know his kit, he doesn't do much damage factor, but he's got a mighty shield that he does. He also does a ton of health for all your troop types, and you got a 40% counterattack damage bonus when you're in your city. That's huge, okay? He also does a skill damage bonus, which is kind of okay, but there's not really any other pairings with skill damage that I guess you can put him with. There are a few, but he also adds some mighty shields to his active skill. Has got mighty shields, and then his third skill's got even more mighty shields. All right, he gives some decent stat sticks here when you're in a garrison. 15% defense, 15% attack. That adds to the 30% health. That is a 60% stat stick. And also, you got a chance to do direct damage of 1,000 on an instant proc, which is really, really good. And then, of course, he's going to take 10% less normal damage. And if you have 3 different troop types, when you're in a city, you always do. The normal damage is reduced by an additional 20%. Okay. And so from that standpoint, really good. He's good against the white numbers that hit you on swarms. He's also decent with that skill against the smite and the combo, but overall against rallies, he's going to get smoked out pretty good. Okay, but there's usefulness with him when it comes to the city garrisons, and we'll talk about that. Okay, we've also got Hector. I'm going to talk about Hector because Hector is like one of those situations that you run into where more and more people are getting him. They're getting him because they're running him in the field, and they're using him as a bridge gap from a situation where you're trying to do more combo or more smite marches, and he's so versatile. Well, one of the reasons why he's so versatile is because all of his talents work in a garrison. Okay, so you can put him behind any garrison commander you want, and he's gonna give you whatever talents that is. You put him behind Gorgo, he's gonna deal smite. You put him behind David, he's gonna deal combo attacks. These are for the garrison. You put him in situations behind like Eleanor, he's still gonna do combo attacks, so that's kind of a dysfunctional situation. But you can also put him behind CY, he's gonna do a little bit of skill damage, or I should say a lot of skill damage with CY. So people are using him all over the place, and he's somebody that you can use in a city garrison. Not necessarily the prickliest commander, but against a rally, he'll do just fine. We've got some other ones in here. Let me bring up Lapu Lapu, okay? Very luxury type commander. Not a lot of people have Lapu. Some leadership garrisons out there already have him because they run like a Hera Lapu situation. But you're going to deal 5 damage to 5 targets at 2,000 damage factor. Okay, that's a Zuge level situation. Okay, if the current target of the commander's troop is a rallied army, it takes extra damage of 300. Okay, that's a good amount of damage of 2,300 put on the rally when it's going against the rallies. Okay, you got a 20% attack bonus here, and a 10% that you're going to deal 10% more skill damage when attacking rallied armies. Okay, and whenever the troop uses an active skill, if you're serving as a garrison commander, you're going to do 10% bonus damage dealt for 3 seconds. That's actually pretty good to get that all damage, because that's going to help against the swarms. It's going to help against rallies, but it's not broken. Okay, it's not like it's out of control. Now, if you're in your city, that ramps up to 20%. That's really good. Okay, now we're cooking, and now we're talking. Lapu has some of that viability. And then when you have the expertise, it ramps up this damage, obviously, to 500 now on the damage factor. And if you're serving as a city garrison, you also, and you have the disarm, you can put the disarm effect on the target for 1 second. And so from that standpoint, it prevents a troop launching basic attack. Basically, it is like a silence. It's like a gag ball. For 1 second, you don't launch that basic attack. It slows down the rage bar. You don't take the damage of the white numbers on that attack, but it doesn't necessarily do anything to the active skill. And for the next 3 seconds, this commander's troop takes 10% less skill damage. Okay, so we're mitigating skill damage with Lapu. Pretty good. Okay, another one that we have here is Matthias. Okay, he's the new jam. Matthias is really good in the city garrison. He is the best city garrison in the game. Okay, he's going to deal direct damage at 2,400 damage factor to 5 targets in an AoE. All right, and if you're serving as a city garrison commander, you also take 10% less damage for 3 seconds. That's a very good tanky 3-second buff that you get when you're in the city garrison. That's from all different damages. Okay, he's got a pretty, I'd say subpar stat stick when it comes to 40%, 15% attack, 15% defense, 10% health. That's all troop types, and that's really good. And this is the other thing. His three unit types, which everybody has 3 unit types in their city, you're going to deal 10% more counterattack. Okay, overall the second skill is a meh. Okay, it's like a B- in the tier list of skills. Okay, not a huge stat stick, 10% counterattack. Okay, but that's not what he's necessarily good for. When you're running as a garrison commander, whenever the garrison reaches 70% rage, you take 25% less skill damage for 4 seconds. All right, there's no cooldown to this. So if you're getting swarmed, you're running your rage up so high, you're going to have high uptime on this, which is really good. 25% less skill damage is a really good mitigation, especially if you're taking skill damage from swarms. And with really the rally, if they're going to rally you with archers. All right. If you're a city garrison, you also gain a damage absorbing shield with a mighty shield factor for 4 seconds, 800 shield factor. Okay, so you start to see with an 800 shield factor plus his big damage that he does at 2,400 to 5 targets around the area, you're starting to ramp up the factor, the damage factor of the damage dealt and the damage absorbed by the mighty shield. And then this is where it really kind of gets interesting. If you're a city garrison commander, your garrison deals 10% more damage. Okay, so you got 10% more damage, you have 10% counterattack damage, and you're doing AoE damage on your active skill. So he's got some kickback damage to him, if you will. And then this is the key to him. Whenever your garrison is hit with the basic attack, you have a 20% chance to cast Let Others Make War. The cooldown is 10 seconds, okay? Now, if this is not expertise, okay, you have a 15% chance to cast the active skill, and the cooldown's 15 seconds. That's not great, okay? But if you have him expertise, you have a 20% chance, and you only have a 10-second cooldown. Well, you want to fire this thing off as much as possible. That's why this guy is so good. He's like got kind of a little bit of an Eleanor effect when it comes to that. So those are your leadership commanders, and I would be remiss if I did not mention our boy YSS. Okay, on the budget side of things, a lot of people have YSS, older accounts have YSS. He's always been really okay. Good defense bonus. He's got a good all damage bonus for a buff that he does. The damage factor he does is 2,000. And so from that standpoint, it's pretty good because it's an AoE effect. He ramps up the defense on his third skill, ramps up the damage even more there. So you're getting more and more defense and damage. All right. And then you ramp up a 20% attack, and then you've got a 500 damage factor shield, but you also have a 30% counterattack damage bonus. So he is good and prickly as well. And then finally, on his expertise, this is really, really good. If the commander has two different types of troops, which you always do in a city, you gain another 20% attack, 20% defense, okay? From there, let me see here. This is why a lot of people, his third skill is really interesting. Like I said, this is why a lot of people like to switch, like if you're taking a city rally, and you drop below 50% units remaining, okay, they're going to burn you. You're in frenzy. They got you in prison. There's nothing you can do about it. People will start out running like, they'll run like a Gorgo with Toku or something, or a Gorgo Hector, or they'll run like David with Hector. But then once you hit 50% troops remaining, they'll switch the Garrison to YSS, and you get that 20% all damage. So YSS has some serviceability against some rallies and different things like that. Okay, so those are your leadership commanders. Some people can say put David in the Garrison. That's a budget situation, or I'm sorry, Philip in the Garrison. That's a budget situation. That's just an all damage type situation. Some trap cities will have Caesar in the Garrison just because they're going to get swarmed, and you want to do a whole bunch of all damage when it comes to Caesar firing off that active skill very often. Okay, from there, you're in a situation to where you've got infantry, cavalry, and archers. Of course, all of your garrisons can work fine in a city garrison. Eleanor is one that's great for instant proc, okay? Zeno obviously had been a garrison for so many years. People run her on the city. If you're going to take a rally, you're going to get wrecked. New garrisons like David does exceptional against rallies when you're trying to defend your city. Gorgo still does exceptional against rallies when people are trying to hit your city, okay? And I'll come down here. Where's the fat man at? There he is. Tokugawa, I don't recommend him on your city because he's got a tough situation with mixed troops, okay? If he's all you got, there's no problem. You can run him. You can run him behind Gorgo and just do a ton of damage and try to do a single target damage when it comes to the rally. But overall, he's not necessarily, you would much rather have Gorgo because Gorgo is so much better with mixed troops, and you're always going to be in mixed troops when you have your city garrison. And so that's kind of what you run into when you're trying to defend and you have these kind of commanders as an infantry player, okay? For archers are really pretty good. From the standpoint that CY does a lot of kickback damage. He does obviously the healing, which isn't necessarily amazing because it's just going to give you more sev wounds, but he's got a ton of stat sticks. He does a lot of normal damage. You can put him with other commanders and it'd be fine. He does a normal damage reduction. He's got a high probability that you're gonna actually negate or cleanse the health and defense buffs of the target for 5 seconds. He's not awful in the city garrison. He's actually pretty good. He's hard to swarm. He's gonna do a ton of healing, and from there, he's also gonna do a ton more counterattack damage. All right, so this guy is actually pretty good. So a lot of people will always ask, well, what's the best situation that you run into? And it's always situational when it comes to what the best city garrisons you have are. So let's do that real quick. Let me pull this up. So here we go. We're going to go city garrison situational, okay? These are the best things to kind of look at when it comes to the different types of situations that you have in running these city garrisons. First of all, we're going to talk about the city pop, okay? This is when your city, all right, let me pull this thing down. If you are in KVK, and this happens a lot, all right? If you're sitting over 100 million power, all right, and you're off tag, you always have to watch out to be swarmed, okay? However, if you're off tag and a whole bunch of fighting's going on around you, when you're off tag and you're in another alliance, based on the actual, you can be in coalition, but you're not in the actual alliance, so your city can be hit. Some people love to put instant proc on their city because people will make mistakes and hit your city. And when they do, you want to fire off instant procs as fast as possible. Okay, well, we have two commanders that do that, and it is instant nuke when they do that. Where's Matthias here? Let me find our new boy. as we talk about Matthias and what he does, okay, he's got that probability when it comes to the instant proc, okay? He instant procs his active skill. So if somebody accidentally hits your city, wham! You just hit them with an active skill, and it's a 5-target AoE. And so I have seen more people, even like 110, 120 million power players, or even 100 million power players, get so much KP and inflict so many deads just by being off tag, and their city accidentally gets hit, and this thing fires off. Holy jeez, it's like a bomb goes off when that happens. And me, as a massive player or any kind of big whale or kraken, you have to watch out for these cities. You got to make sure in your quick command, you've got buildings turned off. Because if you have buildings turned on and you accidentally hit Fluffy Pony, or you accidentally hit me, and I've got Matthias on the wall, it's instant death. You're going to take like 300k deads immediately. Like 3 million troop or 3 million power gone. And so from that standpoint, if you're fighting around a city, you've got to be careful. Now, those of us on the Garrison side, we love it, because if somebody hits us, we absolutely get to wreck these guys. Hold on, let me pull that down. And the other one from this is our girl Eleanor. Okay, I have never really subscribed to Eleanor in any kind of Garrison situation. However, when it comes to city pops, when it comes to instant damage from your city, I love Eleanor. And the reason why is because she has a 10% chance to fire off her Lily of the Wilds. Okay, so when you're in that situation, where you've got Eleanor and Matthias on the wall, you can do instant damage like double time. Like, it's crazy. And so it works for the best situation of doing what we call a city pop. All right, that's when you're actually able to inflict the max damage on any target that accidentally hits you. Okay, so these two take the cake there. They're the two best. All right, if you've got Eleanor Prime, it doesn't really matter which one you run primary. Matthias is probably easier to run because he's got some other things in his talent tree, and you're only going to be hit for a second. And all you're trying to do is get their instant procs to go off. Okay, so that's the best way to run any kind of city pop where people accidentally hit your cities. All right, when it comes to swarms, there's all kinds of different ways to run this on the swarms, but we talked about that. Hera, good against the swarms. Matthias, Lapu, even YSS. All right, you want your commanders to be these leadership commanders. A lot of people say, well, why don't you run Attila there? Well, you don't run Attila because in your city you got multiple troop types. So you want to make sure you're getting the benefit from all the leadership commander skills and how to run those. So any way you want to run these, personally, I would say Hera with Matthias would be the best anti-swarm. 100% best anti-swarm. But you can also run your boy Lapu and YSS. In addition, you can also do Martel against the swarm. He's really good. Obviously, he's got the all damage bonus from his active skill, and he is someone you can put versus the swarm. So if you're ever in fighting in KVK and you have to leave a garrison on your wall, make sure you got something like this on your wall just in case you get swarmed. Try to have some gear on whatever commander you've got there. And if one of the big players decides to swarm you, you can at least inflict a lot of punishment on him with anti-swarm stuff and counterattack. Okay, versus the rally. This is the question everybody always asks. Like, what's the best city garrison? Guys, the best city garrison is your best garrison. That's just the way it is. And so people try to get finite when it comes down to this. When it's like, hey, is Gorgo better than David as a city garrison? There's multiple factors that run into this. And the two main ones you got to think about are your troop types. Okay, I've got drastically more cavalry in my city than any other troop type. And since I do, that means that my David is going to be great for my city garrison, okay? So basically, it's whatever troop type is in your city that you have the most of, you're going to get the most benefit against a rally with that commander because he's enhancing cavalry defense, okay? Well, I have tons of cavalry. That's great. It's the same thing with infantry. It's the same thing with archers. But David and Gorgo and CY, they're all going to be your best city defense against rallies if you have this kind of garrison setup. Okay, CY's in the same situation. He does really, really well against city garrisons. And so do I actually have enough to, nope, not on this account. He actually does really, really well when it comes to running against a rally. And then your secondary is really kind of the tough part to understand. Okay, now the other part you gotta figure out is not only your troop cap and where your troops are, you have to look at what you have your inscriptions on. Okay, if you have a really good set of, let's say, pincer, right? You got a busted set of pincer, you got 4 legendaries, then that is the armament you use for your Gorgo. All right, so it's not Tercio. A lot of people get caught in these situations to where you think, because Tercio is so broken, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes, it's so broken, but it really not a whole lot of people have this stuff when it comes to the special inscriptions. Some have a couple of special inscriptions, and that's really, really good to use, but this Tercio stuff is out of control good. We'll talk about it in a second, but if you're just going against a rally and you're a city garrison and you've got like Gorgo, well, you just put your best pincer on Gorgo. And that's the way it goes. Plus, you got the troop types of the most troops that you have. So what do? I'm going to put my Delta on David, my really good Delta set, and I'm going to run David with Delta with my best gear, and I'm going to run that because I have a ton of cavalry troops, and that's the best I can do against rallies. Trust me, guys, I've run garrisons and cities against rallies hundreds of times. And you got to understand there's no right answer for this because it's all situational to your troop composite, what your armaments are, what your gear is, and how you're set up for it. You just want to use your best garrison for your city against rallies. You want to use your best garrison with the best armaments, with the best gear. You don't get into all the minutia of which commander's what and this. Just go with the garrison commanders. That's more of what you want to do. So when I pull this thing up, we're going to talk about Gorgo. We're going to talk about David. We're going to talk about CY. Okay, those are your best garrisons against rallies. They always are for your city. All right, you can do the Matthias and Hera thing, or do full Hera YSS, but it's going to get absolutely wrecked. Okay, you want to put the single troop type garrisons up against the rallies. They just do better against rallies. Also, Hector is busted good against rallies in your city. You can put him as a leadership commander behind any one of these 3, and it's going to do absolute work. Okay, if you have Matthias, he is probably the secondary that's the best of choice behind any of these commanders. However, you can really focus the smite by putting Hector behind Gorgo. You can focus the combo by putting Hector behind David. All right, and then with Matthias, obviously it's skill damage for him, so you're getting a little bit disjointed when you put him behind Gorgo or David. All right, and then obviously you've got Hera and you've got Tokugawa you can put up there as well, and you've got Lapu. I don't advise Tokugawa. He just doesn't do very well with mixed troops, but you can use him if you really want to nuke a rally. You got a bunch of infantry. You can run a Gorgo with Tokugawa on your wall. It'll do fine against a rally. It'll actually do really well. And so Hera's there. Anything that you've got Hera with against a rally is going to get smoked pretty good. I'll actually put him back here. Lapu's probably a little bit better against a rally, but that's kind of how you run these things. You have to look at rallies like you look at structure garrisons. Okay, you can't look at these rallies like, oh my gosh, I gotta have Hera and YSS on the wall. You don't necessarily need to do that against the rallies. Against swarms, great. Against rallies, no. And then on the budget side of things, YSS, a ton of people have him. Martel is probably the best budget garrison in the game. Okay, you got YSG. Everybody's got a Chin. Chin will do work for you in a garrison, okay? If you put Chin and Martel behind him in your city garrison, you do the best you can, you'll be fine, okay? But a lot of people run Chin in the field, so if you're just trying to budget garrison for city pops and swarms, Martel's okay. YSG's a great budget situation. You got to remember, YSG's a garrison commander. People forget about that sometimes. Zuge, high damage, but like I said, Martel does the 40% all damage bonus he gives to whoever's behind him. That's why Martel's worked always pretty good in a garrison, and for your city, you can do okay. You also got Luce. Like, you put Martel and Luce behind him on your city wall, and you got a bunch of infantry, but you're running mixed troops, it will do okay. You're not just going to get completely annihilated. All right. You just got to make sure you've got the gear and the armaments on whatever troop that is the commander or the primary commander of your city defense. I put Chin up there. I've also got Xeno up here as kind of a token. You know, so a lot of people have Xeno and you don't have the new commanders, but Xeno, you don't want to run on your city anymore. You just don't want to do it. Okay. So that gives you a good idea. There's other commanders you can put in here. BQ you can put in here. Some people will run like David with Arthur sometimes on their rally setup. When they're going up against a rally, it's just a ton of combo damage. When you run, David with Achilles, not Arthur, because Arthur's a skill damage commander as a secondary, but that's how you can run these things. So it's all situational, okay? Now, let me break down the myth real quick when it comes to the armaments, all right? Because when it comes to the armaments, like I said, if you're going up against a rally, the best thing you can do is run your garrison with your best garrison formation. However, against a city swarm, all right? Against a city swarm that you know you're going to be swarmed, Tercio is so broken, y'all. You put this 15% boost to counterattack damage. If you can get that, even Vigilant has got a 6% boost. All right. Everybody should, if you've been in the game long enough, you can put a Tercio setup together and you can put it on your garrison when you're out field fighting in case you get swarmed. That's what Tercio is really good for. The skills or the actual effects of the special inscriptions and rare inscriptions on Tercio are just broken. They're just so good. And the only way you would run Tercio ahead of like Pincer or Delta or Wedge for your city garrisons like Gorgo and David and CY is if your Tercio has better armaments. If it just has better special inscriptions, which it probably won't because not everybody invests in Tercio. But if you did, holy geez, you go put this on like a Matthias and with a David Matthias or something like that, it would be out of control good. Or you go put it on like a David Hector, it would be great. I mean, you can put it on just about anything. So that's what Tercio is used for. So you want to use Tercio when you have your marches out and you might be swarmed, or when maybe they're going to city pop you're going to city pop with Eleanor and Matthias. But honestly, with that situation, I like just running my wedge stuff. My wedge stuff with Matthias and Eleanor just ramp up the skill damage. That's all that thing is. And so really, it's just more for anti-swarm that you want to run your Tercio, okay? Because I will always say this, and I will attest to this. If you have great pincer stuff, if you got great Delta stuff for Cavs, if you got great wedge stuff for archers, those are always going to perform better than like a scuffed Tercio set when you're going against the rally. So just understand that and how that thing works. I'm sure there's other commanders we can talk about here that we could easily go plug and play here, but this is really just kind of the situation. City pop, Matthias, Eleanor, there's nothing better against it. Okay, versus swarms, you've got an array of the leadership commanders that are best to use: Hera, Matthias, Lapu, and YSS. You can even put Martel in there a little bit. You can even put Gorgo in there a little bit if you've got really good like arch stuff and you want to put Gorgo in front of Hera, or you want to put Gorgo in front of Matthias or something like that. Versus rallies, you stick to your garrison commanders. That's what's best against the rallies, okay? And then for your budget, Martel's great, YSS is great, Zuge, YSG, even Luce and Chen are all really good. If you get stuck in a situation to where you got to go defend against a rally and you don't have any of the massive leadership garrison commanders or anything like that, you can do it on a budget. So there's your guide for your city garrisons and how these things work. If you have any questions, get down in the comments. I'm always down there. I'm always answering questions. If you enjoyed this video, throw a thumbs up on it, give it a like. And if you have not subscribed, consider doing so. Join my Discord, get in the community. We have over 8,000 people in my Discord that have these conversations every day. My Discord link is down in the description. And with that being said, we hope you have a great day, broskies.